What's going on, everybody? What follows are my favorite betting props ahead of Super Bowl Sunday. As always, it's a great day to be great. First up, I'm taking the over on Brock Purdy, 3.5 rush attempts. You can get this at plus 120 odds over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And yeah, the main reason I like this is because we have consistently seen Purdy be more willing to scramble and take off on his own when it has mattered most in the playoffs. Specifically, excluding that injury-shortened game against the Eagles in last year's NFC Championship, we've seen Purdy rack up 3, 4, 5, and 6 rush attempts in his 4 full playoff games. And no, guys, we're not going to confuse him for Lamar Jackson or anything out there, but Purdy is gritty, he's hard-nosed. First one in, last one out. Pretty much every single adjective you could use to describe a sneaky, athletic white dude out there playing QB. So again, not going to exactly run past everyone, but the guy can scoot a little bit. In addition to Purdy's own ability, I also want to point out that this Chiefs defense has allowed the 3rd most rush attempts this season to opposing quarterbacks. Now, that was only during the regular season, not just giving them the benefit of those extra 3 games. And the reason for this, I believe, comes down to the fact that Steve Spagnuolo's group runs man coverage at one of the higher rates in the league. Specifically, the Chiefs have run the 8th most cover 1, cover 0, or 2-man this season, and accordingly, opposing QBs have posted the 5th highest scramble rate against the Chiefs. Accordingly, guys, 12 of 20 quarterbacks have passed this line against the Chiefs and overall have averaged 5.7 rush attempts per game against Chris Jones and company. Last game of the year, Brett, can't hold anything back now. I think both Purdy's demonstrated willingness to scramble in more high leverage situations, combined with the Chiefs' aforementioned man-heavy tendencies, will allow Purdy to beat this mark with ease. And hell, maybe we even get a couple kneel downs at the end of the first or second half for good measure. Up next, guys, I will be placing at least a unit or two on Christian McCaffrey to win MVP at the plus 475 odds listed over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, I know this is usually a quarterback award. Specifically, 56% of Super Bowl MVPs have played quarterback and 58% have played QB since 2000. But that said, guys, Christian McCaffrey, not your everyday running back. As Dwayne McFarland pointed out in his ever excellent utilization report, we are talking about a guy with the best utilization since Jamal freaking Lewis, who obviously shined back with those 2000 Ravens. Now, when we look back at the past Super Bowl MVPs who played running back, it has admittedly been a while. In fact, Terrell Davis was the last guy to actually get there, but when we actually go ahead and look at the 7 previous winners, we're not seeing completely asinine production. Specifically, guys, Larry Zonka, Franco Harris, John Riggins, Marcus Allen, Otis Anderson, Emmitt Smith, and Terrell Davis averaged 160.7 total yards and 1.7 touchdowns during their respective MVP performances. Again, that's really good production and everything, not trying to take anything away from those guys. Good for them for winning those awards. But with McCaffrey, we're talking about a guy that has averaged this year 127 total yards and 1.4 touchdowns per game. That's an average. He's gone for over 115 yards with multiple scores in 33% of his games. When we're talking about players who have the opportunity to clear triple-digit yards with ease and find the end zone at least once, if not twice, CMC stands out as the premier running back to do so because, hell guys, I don't know, he does lead the entire NFL ever in terms of PPR fantasy points per game after all. Throw in a Chiefs defense that has been far better against the pass, ranking 3rd in EPA allowed per dropback compared to the run where they rank 28th in EPA allowed per rush attempt, and we have the ingredients for a CMC-centered game plan, which honestly wouldn't be all that surprising considering what we've seen the man do over these past 2 weeks, ripping off 128 and 132 total yards with 2 touchdowns in each game. Hey, I'm not going to make this about shitting on Brock Purdy. I think we can go turn on whatever channel you want and hear plenty of guys doing that already. But seriously, guys, if we would have had to take an MVP vote after the divisional round game against the Packers and then also after the NFC Championship against the Lions, I just don't think Purdy's sub 300 yard totals with only 1 passing touchdown would have been enough to get it done. So yes, it is primarily an MVP award, but again, 56 and 58% of the award winners wasn't nearly as high as I thought it would be, and I do believe that CMC would have been the MVP of each of the 49ers' last 2 games if the media was forced to select someone. My third major prop I'm feeling pretty good about this weekend is going to go to another running back, this time Chiefs RB Isiah Pacheco, rushing for at least 80 yards, alternate line over at DraftKings Sportsbook, and you can get plus 170 odds on this occurring. Similar to the reasoning for McCaffrey, this matchup specifically does bode well for Pacheco's chances on the ground. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Fred Warner and Nick Bosa and company are bad against the run. I think more so it's a choice that we've seen teams like the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Ravens. Most of the league's best overall defenses are also, unsurprisingly, much better against the pass than the run. This is 2024 after all. So when we do see the 49ers ranking 5th in terms of EPA allowed per dropback compared to 27th in EPA allowed per carry, again, I'm not going to say they're a straight up horrendous run defense or anything, but it's been a constant decision point by this defense to at least devote more resources against the pass than to stopping the run. Accordingly, we've seen 5 different backs clear 80 yards this season against this defense with relative ease. We're talking about guys like Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, James Conner, and Jerome Ford all clearing 80 yards without even needing 20 plus rush attempts. Enter Pacheco, who has been an absolute workhorse down the stretch and is fresh off receiving a whopping 24 totes against the Ravens last week. This extra workload has accordingly led to plenty of production recently, with Pacheco ripping off totals of 68, 97, 89, and 130 rushing yards in his past 4 contests. Yes, we could see the return of Jerick McKinnon here, but I really think that would do more harm to Pacheco's pass down work than threaten any of his rush attempts. Overall, guys, Fantasy Life projections actually have Pacheco clearing 80 yards alone, and for this reason, I'm happy to take the plus 170 odds relative to his 66.5 rushing prop, which you gotta bet at minus 120 to take the over. I also have 5 additional props that, no, I don't feel quite as strongly about as I do the previous 3 we just went over, but hey, this is the last chance we have to bet on professional NFL football in a meaningful game until next September, so yeah, I'm gonna be sprinkling some money on these as well. First up, I do like Brock Purdy to hit the over on his longest completion mark, which is set at 37.5 yards. Overall, he's cleared this in 12 of 18 games this season, including 6 of his last 7, and as great as the Chiefs defense does happen to be, these receivers out here, including CMC, Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo, certainly more than capable of making big plays on their own. Look no further than Purdy literally hitting a Lions defender in the hands last week, only for Ayuk to go ahead and come down with the big play anyway. Speaking of Ayuk, I do like Ayuk to score over 0.5 receiving touchdowns at plus 185 odds over at DraftKings. Now, if you bet Ayuk on anytime touchdown, you're only gonna get plus 175 odds. Value, baby. Yes, it would absolutely break my heart to see Ayuk go ahead and take a rush attempt into the end zone after saying all this, but he has not received a single carry this season, and if he's gonna score, I gotta believe it would be through the air, so yeah, I'll take the extra plus 10 odds. Up next, going to be taking an under, specifically George Kittle going south of 23.5 receiving yards, plus 475 odds over at DraftKings, and that is the main reason why here. Love Kittle the player. For my money's worth, he is the single best all-around tight end in football, but guys, as we've seen in this crowded passing game, he's not always leaned on. Specifically, he's finished with fewer than 5 targets in 8 separate games this year, and finished under this mark in 4 separate contests. Overall, I just think this odds associated with the line are far too high to be fully staying away from, especially against the Chiefs defense that was a top 10 group in terms of limiting opposing tight ends in pure receiving yards. All right, guys, getting a little bit weird for these last 2. Give me the under on Justin Watson 1.5 receptions with a little bit of extra juice, minus 130 odds over at DraftKings. Overall, guys, here's Justin Watson's reception totals during his last 10 games. 1, 0, 2, 0, 1, 4, 1, 1, 0, and 1. Yeah, hasn't exactly been balling out recently, and we even saw a shift in the overall wide receiver usage in the AFC Championship, with Rashee Rice and Marquez Valdes-Scantling emerging as the only 2 full-time options. Throwing the potential return of Kadarius Toney this weekend, and I just think Watson, who is fairly projected, I might say, at just 1.1 receptions over at Fantasy Life, isn't someone we should be expecting to come down with multiple passes. And last, and also least, I'm betting the over on Reba McEntire's national anthem time going north of 90 seconds. This might be a hard one to find at most normal sports books, but you know, if you want to just piss off your family and friends and show how big of a true DJ you are, there's nothing like having that stopwatch out while the great Star Spangled Banner is blasting through your stereo. So with this one, guys, last time we saw Reba do this was actually at the 2017 charity softball event, and while she went under in that situation, addition, I think the bright lights and timing of the Super Bowl will cause her to go a bit long here. So really just a surprisingly low mark at 90.5 seconds. We've only seen Jewel and Billy Joel actually go at 90 seconds or under in the history of the Super Bowl, at least as far back as covers.com was willing to track it. So good stuff by them, and good stuff hopefully by Reba if she really lets that voice go and hopefully goes over that 90-second mark. That's it from me, guys. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Hopefully make some money, or at least, try. What's better than that? Have a great day.